If you're going to make a point about something, you have to have a story, an example, or an exercise to back up what you're saying.
It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Mark Hurrell is a distinguished Toastmaster, and he has been a Toastmaster since October 2012. Now, he's been actively supporting the district in several roles, such as the finance manager, the public relations manager, the admin manager, and this year, currently, Mark is serving the district as our club growth director. So please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Mark Hurrell.
Thank you very much, Carol, and welcome everyone to Building Confident Communicators, a Toastmasters Masterclass. We're so excited to have you all here today. We have an action-packed agenda. Just to go over a few things before we officially start our first major piece, I put the agenda as well as a few flyers in the chat, so you're welcome to download them and follow along. Today, we're here to learn some public speaking insights, learn how Toastmasters works, and hear directly from other members that have experienced it in the workplace. So to start off, I'm going to introduce our very first speaker. So our speaker today has been a Toastmaster for 15 years. He's a professional speaker, a TEDx speaker, and a communications coach. He is a 3-time distinguished Toastmaster, that is our highest award, an 8-time public speaking champion with more contest wins than any speaker in the 90-year history of Toastmasters NBC, and he's competed in the World Championship of Public Speaking, finishing in the top 6. Today, he's going to tell us some public speaking basics, and to give you one more file that you can use, I'm going to share an evaluation form. So if you want to see how Toastmasters works for evaluations, you're welcome to use that and evaluate our amazing speaker today. It is now in the chat. Without further ado, please welcome Stefano Casalter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's my pleasure to come here today to speak and share what I've learned from Toastmasters, this wonderful organization. I'll never forget the first time I got up and started speaking. I completely froze up. My face went red. I started sweating. But after being a part of Toastmasters, I've learned the basics and the skills and the advanced skills of public speaking, and has revolutionized my life. I'm not the same man I was today. And being able to do something that 99% of the population will not do is an incredible advantage. So today I'm just going to share a few tips and tricks for you on the basics of public speaking. So good public speaking is a mixture of content, structure, and delivery. And one of the most important parts of that is delivery. When you get in front of people, you need to be able to have the correct physiology. So first of all, you want to look confident, even if you aren't confident. And there's ways to do that. So before you speak, take a deep breath and stand strong. Hold yourself straight and straight up. Have your feet pointing somewhat forward and about hip width apart. This gives you the best, strongest base. Hold your hands in a neutral position. Either neutral, which is, let's get up there, they're like around here, so it's easy to gesture, or by your sides. But most of the time you want to have it in a neutral gesture because gestures are important. The more gestures we use in our talk, the more it enhances it. In fact, there's studies that go into the importance of hand gestures and explaining and getting your ideas across to your audience. So stand strong. Movement's important as well. Movement in transition. So, for example, if you can't, what I mean by that is no pacing. So what I call is the beginner two-step. What people usually do is they'll start pacing back and forwards like this, or they might kind of walk like this, crab walk to the side. But any movements and gestures should be purposeful. So if I was going to if I was going to move, I would move in transition. So I'd be talking to someone here and I would be telling on point, and then I looked and I told her, your dreams are not for sale. See, that movement was purposeful. It was for a purpose. Another thing is your eye contact. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. So what you want to do is have a good eye contact with your audience. On Zoom, that means looking right at the black dot. If I'm looking down at the screen like this, can you feel that connection disappearing? But when I look directly at the camera, it looks like you're actually looking into your eyes. So for Zoom, for sure. When you have an audience, you want to make sure you spread your eye contact around to everybody. Say, for example, if you have an audience of 500 people, you want to make 500 different connections with people. And the way you do that is you look at sections of the audience. So, for example, if I'm looking over here, all these people are going to think that I'm looking directly at them. And then when I move my eyes in transition, all these people will feel like I'm looking at them. One common mistake people make with eye contact is they spray it like this, like a fire hose. But you want to create connections. And in order to create a connection, you have to spend a little bit of time with someone before you move to a different person. Another tip when you have an audience is make sure you mix it up. You don't want to be changing your eye contact like this. You want to make it different. You want to spread it around, not in that way. Eye contact. Range is the next one, is our vocal variety. And in order to keep people engaged with your talk, you have to have variations in your pitch, your volume. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they first start speaking is they'll start speaking in the same voice like this. And throughout their entire talk, there's no difference in tone or volume or anything. And they end up putting their audience to sleep. But what you need to do, and this is what, say, I do in my speeches, or it allows me to keep people engaged for 45 minutes, for 2 days, is to change it. You change your vocal variety, add inflections, add volume, different pitch, cadence. If you're varying it, people keep engaged and interested in what you're saying. Another one is to slow down. There is power in pausing. One of the biggest things people do especially when they first start speaking, is they will speak way too fast. And what happens when you're speaking way too fast is you don't breathe properly. So you need to take the time to pause, breathe, and continue speaking. Not to mention, if you don't give your audience a chance to catch up, especially when you're saying something powerful, make sure you give that pause so they can reflect on what you're saying. Plus, it gives you time to think as well. Another one is to know what you're going to say. There's nothing worse than somebody that rambles on endlessly. So what makes great speech crafting is conciseness. Know what your message is, know what you're going to say, and then say it, and that's it. If you start to ramble, you lose connection with your audience, and people just don't get what you're saying. So that's pretty much all your delivery parts. Next, content and structure. Now, content and structure, it goes pretty deep, but the main things to think about is how you anchor all the points that you were saying. And my 3 rules are, if you're going to make a point about something, you have to have a story, an example, or an exercise to back up what you're saying. Otherwise, if you think of your point as a helium balloon, unless you anchor it down, it's just going to float away. What I use most of all are stories. Stories are the most important. Telling stories is the most important skill you learn, and using them in your speeches is the greatest way to connect with people. We've been using storytelling for thousands of years to pass on information from person to person. So it will be one of your most important skills that you can learn in order to teach people in a way that they'll listen. So these are just some of the basic tips. Of course, you learn these in Toastmasters and much more. If you want to get into the Pathways program, you can choose a program that suits your life. And I've taken advantage of it. I have done several paths. I've reverse engineered them to benefit me in my life. And public speaking has been the most important skill I've ever learned. And I know it will I guarantee you, it will improve your life as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Stefano. So now we have some really strong basics for public speaking. And that's part of the heart of Toastmasters, having prepared speeches and getting evaluated on them. So if you saw that file I upload with the general evaluation form, that's often what you'll see at a meeting with a speaker and then receive an evaluation. But there's even more to Toastmasters. So to tell us about table topics and what those are, I'm going to introduce a Toastmaster of 8 years and the current leader for program quality across BC, Melody Hellwood.
Thanks, Mark. So at this part of today's session, we're going to explore what we call table topics. Now, table topics is a way where we practice thinking on our feet. And speakers are going to hear a question read out loud by me, and it's supposed to test our short impromptu speaking skills. The speech or the response to the question should be within 1 to 2 minutes long. And so today we're going to show you a version of what table topics in a Toastmasters meeting could look like. So a couple of things for the timing, as I mentioned, it should be 1 to 2 minutes long. And you'll notice my friend Carol, she's been putting up some signals for timing in the corner. So these are the signals. You'll see green at 1 minute, yellow at 1 minute 30, and then red at 2 minutes. And then typically in Toastmasters, you have about 30 seconds grace to wrap up your speech. So we're going to try it now, and you'll see how it works. So the first question is, what is one situation where you wish you felt more confident speaking? What is one situation where you wish you felt more confident speaking? For this, I will choose to call on my fellow Toastmaster, Brian. Brian, what is one situation where you wish you felt more confident speaking?
Thank you very much for that question. Wasn't expecting it, but I'm happy to take it on, Melody. A situation that I always find more challenging when I'm speaking is maybe not what we think of as public speaking. I've spoken to large rooms of people, but where I find it challenging is when you have to talk to somebody about something that they might have done a little bit better. And this is particularly so in, say, a work environment or an interpersonal situation. I find that there is a challenge with being clear, being received well, and not critical, and making your points so that although the points have been made, it's accepted by the other person. So it involves the true nature of dialogue as opposed to speaking at someone. So that ability to provide and have feedback received is a challenge. And it's something that I've noticed in our Toastmasters sessions with all of the evaluations that take place, that we get to practice that. So I think I'm a far better communicator now. And I think there were a lot of people who thought I was a good talker, but being able to be received, accepted, and have my communication valued is something that I've really appreciated. And that's what I would say. Melody, back to you.
Thank you, Brian. So that's one example of hearing a table topics question asked out loud, not knowing if you'll be called on or not to answer it, being called on, and then responding within 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you, Brian. I'll ask one more question. This one is, what is one skill Toastmasters helped you develop that you didn't expect when you first joined? What is one Toastmasters skill that helped you develop that you didn't expect when you first joined? I will ask our Club Growth Director, Mark Hurrell, to answer the question. Mark, what is one skill Toastmasters helped you develop that you didn't expect when you first joined?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much, Madam Table Talks Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our wonderful guests on the call. I've now been in Toastmasters for almost 14 years, so there's been a lot of unexpected benefits from being a member. When I first joined, my goal was to just develop some public speaking experience. What I didn't expect at the very beginning, but having been there for a while, I've now realized is a major piece to it, was the impromptu speaking portion. When I first joined, I was the kind of person who would memorize their speech for days in advance, then freeze as soon as I forgot my next word from my script. But having done table topics every single week and being able to practice thinking off the cuff, I've now been proud to say I've done a 7-minute speech with only the time between being asked to speak and getting to the stage to prepare. And that is not something I thought I would ever be able to do back 15 years ago. In addition, taking on all these different leadership roles, I've learned more about public relations, marketing, finance, even just minute taking that I did not expect when first joining Toastmasters. For me, it's been a sandbox to play with my career, build skills, and try things that I didn't expect and just do something new. You never know where it could lead. At one point, I even had 3 different jobs, all because of Toastmasters. So there's been a lot of unexpected value, and I'm sure as the years go on, there'll be even more to do. Thank you, and back to Melody.
Thank you, Mark. Another great example of how to tackle a table topics question. But in the real life setting, you may experience being asked impromptu questions in your personal life, your relationships, maybe in your education setting, or maybe in the career setting. For me personally, after 8 years of being a Toastmaster, I work in insurance. And I can tell you both the prepared speech as well as impromptu speaking skills that I've gained have really driven my career path. And I can see that metric in a whole bunch of different ways. And so table topics definitely being one of them that helped me think on my feet. So hopefully this was a display for you of how sharing your personal experiences yields to being involved in a supportive environment at Toastmasters while helping yourself grow and gain those skills that you're after. And that concludes our table topic session. I'll pass it back to our chair, Mark.
Thank you very much, Melody. I hope everyone enjoyed that just as much as I did. So now you've seen some prepared speeches, some impromptu speeches. Now you want to know a bit more about what actually is Toastmasters. How does this actually work behind the scenes? So to talk about that, I'm going to introduce a Toastmaster of 10 years, who in her personal life is a semi-retired media relations professional, and as of last year, led half of BC for Toastmasters. Please help me welcome Virginia Keast.
Thank you so much, Mark. What a pleasure it is to be here with my fellow Toastmasters, and particularly guests. I know I never met Isaac, Kareem, Carolyn, Pam, or Lindsay. So I hope you'll enjoy this next description, and I have to race through it, about Toastmasters. Just basically, what is Toastmasters and what it can do for you. Now, I have been finding my voice for the past 9 or 10 years, and it never changes. I'm still curious. I'm still learning. There we go. See what Toastmasters can do for you and explore the future for you. Now, what is Toastmasters? You may know, we just don't give toasts at weddings. Toastmasters has been around for over 100 years. They're a worldwide nonprofit educational organization that empowers people of all ages and cultures to become more effective communicators and leaders. And look at that network. Around the world, in 145, 146, 47, 48, it changes sometimes the countries we are in, with almost 15,000 clubs and over 270,000 members. That's a lot of people. Toastmasters actually comes in 8 official languages, although English is the prime language that everybody likes to learn more than anything else. They are known then as an effective provider of dynamic, high-value, experiential, as you've been listening, experiential communication and leadership skills. Now, here's a little bit of what you might learn. You use these tools in Toastmasters to broaden your horizon and enhance everything you do. Things like critical thinking, enhanced listening, your presentations, impromptu speaking, as we just heard from Brian, and so much more. Listening, not just listening, but active listening. Our Toastmasters Club environments also help you learn and give feedback, positive feedback that promises to give you tremendous professional and personal growth. Just imagine being able to encourage people, and even when it's difficult, as Brian alluded to. You know, Toastmasters is a judgment-free space where you can practice, grow, and transform. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at that space. The meeting experience is key. It's a pillar to Toastmasters. And here you get a hands-on learning environment with practicing prepared speeches and impromptu speeches every week. And every week you receive feedback and evaluations in a supportive environment. There's that judgment-free piece. And it's remarkable how it helps us all grow together. You will have opportunities to lead at every meeting. You'll have opportunities to take on roles at every meeting. At every meeting, there is a Toastmaster who guides the meeting, a general evaluator who leads evaluations, and a grammarian who's listening for language, an awe counter. Believe it or not, it won't take you long to drop those audible pauses like, like, so, from your language if you just turn up and practice regularly. It's a remarkable experience, and Toastmasters holds meetings both in person, online, and hybrid. Now, we were talking about that meeting experience and the pillar of the meeting. Another pillar is the Toastmasters Pathways Learning experience, and that is key to every meeting. Every member, when you join, receives one free path to start with, but you can purchase all of them if you like, and even return to them after years of experience with one path. You can choose from 6 paths based on your own goals. And you can use Pathways Online. It has evolved over the years, and it's now very much an online program. You work at your own pace and build your skills according to your own goals. Here's a quick glimpse into Pathways. It's interesting. Pathways is built on 5 core competencies. Those are public speaking, interpersonal communications, strategic leadership, very key, management, of course, in a lot of different ways, and always building your confidence. There are over 300 practical competencies that you can learn in all these 6 paths and throughout these 5 levels. The 5 levels are interesting because in the first level, you learn to master your fundamentals, just as Stefano was talking to us about in terms of presenting your speeches. In the second level, you'll learn more about your own leadership style and your own communication style. And then you start to branch out in levels 3, 4, and 5. So you'll learn to get more and more involved with all kinds of competencies. In those 6 paths, they're all similar, but they have slightly different themes, right? So there's dynamic leadership, and you might choose the core competencies of public speaking, strategic leadership, and interpersonal communication. Or you may want to be focused on your presentation style, and that's all the kinds of things that you need to deliver an excellent speech. Your vocal variety, your tone, again, a lot of things that our expert Stefano related to. There's also engaging humor, if you want to learn more about your style of humor, or persuasive influence, if you have something you truly believe in and you just need to build upon those skills to be able to motivate and encourage other people. It is truly a remarkable and customizable path. Learning doesn't stop there, though. Here's the evaluation process. It's key, and we talk about it all the time. It is non-judgmental, and you learn the skills to be able to give encouraging feedback to all your members. But learning doesn't stop there. Beyond the club, there are speech contests that go right up to the international convention with the World Championship of Public Speaking, where Stefano has been to represent our District 21. Our district has conferences as well to bring us all together and learn together. And there are many helpful resources at Toastmasters.org. Breaking your barriers, not your budget. I'll end with talking to you briefly about the cost. Compared to conferences and seminars, Toastmasters is ongoing and affordable. It's $25 US for your new member fee, one time only, and $60 US every 6 months. Isn't that interesting when you think most training programs cost up to $2,000 a year? And each club may have a few costs as well for rent or operations, but still it's remarkably cost effective. So there you have it in a nutshell. I invite you to find your voice here at Toastmasters. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Virginia, for that in-depth and very fast introduction to Toastmasters. As I mentioned earlier on, if anyone has questions about this or anything else I've seen today, feel free to put them in the chat to Carol Murphy, as there will be a Q&A at the end. As we talked about evaluations, we also want to give you a chance to actually see one live and in person. So to evaluate our table topic session, I'd like to introduce a Toastmaster of 33 years, co-author of the new book, Mission Accepted for the 262 Women Project, and the current leader of public relations and marketing for Toastmasters in BC. Please help me welcome Lydia Burchell.
Thank you very much, Mark. All right, it is my pleasure to do evaluations of our table topic speakers today. And I'm going to start with Brian. Brian answered the question about the situation that he learned more confidence in speaking in Toastmasters. Brian, when he spoke very well. His voice was very clear, and he had a great pitch and volume to when he was speaking. He also had very good hand gestures. Every movement with his hands enhanced what he was saying, which made his speaking all that much better and easier for us to follow along with him. His speech structure, he had a great opening. When he answered the question, he started with something that caused us to pay attention. And then he gave some structure into the body of his speech. Keeping in mind, it's a short, unprepared speech. And so Brian did that very well. I have a couple of growth points for Brian in his speaking, and that was he had a conclusion, but I think there could have been something like asking the audience a question or giving them an impactful statement at the end that would have made us really hold on to and take away the important part of your speech, what you wanted us to know and learn from what you had spoken about. And one other growth point that I had was, and this is really challenging to do, I know, when you're online, was eye contact. As Stefano mentioned, when you look in the camera, it's like you're looking at your audience in the eyes. And yours was a bit around and occasionally looking at the camera, but it was also looked a little bit distracting because you were looking in different places. Overall, well done, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. And I have one more very quickly for Mark. Excuse me. Mark had great enthusiasm when he was speaking. He also went into a great structure with his speech. He had an opening that caught our attention, and along with his enthusiasm. And he also had a point in there where when he was speaking, he had almost held us in suspense, which is great for drawing your audience in. Really well done, Mark. And I noticed that, again, this is a growth point that is challenging when you're speaking online, more so than when you're speaking in person, is we're trying to look in that camera so we make a connection with our audience. You did fairly well with that, but you two also were looking around a bit versus keeping your eye contact steady on the camera. And it can be challenging. I'm trying to read from my notes right now and hold that attention, and it's not easy. You two, the same with Brian. Your closing was just a little bit, could have had more impact. You could have left more with your audience. And but overall, well done. And I love the enthusiasm that you had when you were speaking. So thank you, Mark. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. So we've accomplished a couple of our goals, gained some insights into how Toastmasters works, hearing some public speaking basics. So now for our third goal, hearing from people who experience Toastmasters in their workplace. So join me now on camera. I have two panelists to introduce you to. Our first panelist is Brian Evans, who's been a Toastmaster of 6 years, is a former elected member of a municipal council, works for the BC Public Service, and led a district conference for Toastmasters in Sydney last year. Please welcome Brian. And our second panelist today has been Toastmasters for 4 years and currently leads the program of Toastmasters at Best Buy Canada. Please help me welcome Caroline Hogue. Excellent. Thank you both for joining us tonight. And I dive straight into my very first question. So I'll start with Brian, then I'll have the same question to Caroline. So Brian, how has participating in the Toastmasters program helped you personally in your career or through your professional development?
Thank you, Mark. I think there are sort of three main areas, and they're somewhat related. Firstly, I would say confidence is the key. With that, and the confidence does result from a clarity of communication. And then more importantly, I think in the long run and how you want to be either as a person or an employee is the impact that I feel that I've had some persuasive influence and impact in my employment. I know absolutely that I received a job promotion based on an interview where I was told that I hit it out of the park. I had had to do a written presentation before, but in presenting the briefing note that I was doing, that I had done an exceptional job. And I put that all on Toastmasters. This was a year or two after joining, and my confidence level was high, and my ability to present came across. I've been involved in emceeing some of our division meetings, and I've been provided through work opportunities to learn, to grow, to network, and to lead. And I put that all at the feet of Toastmasters.
Thank you very much, Brian. Now, Caroline, have you seen Toastmasters help you personally or through professional development?
Yes, certainly. Similar to Mark, in fact, confidence is the key here for me. When I joined Toastmaster, I was speaking English quite well. I've been in BC for 10 years now. When I first arrived in BC, I could barely order anything in English in a restaurant. I was like pointing. I could not speak. So came a point in my career that I needed to grow those public speaking skills in English, because I could take the time to reflect, talk, but anytime I was in a meeting or something impromptu was coming up in a conversation and I could not prepare for it, it was knocking me off. So having a safe space to practice speaking English, having a safe space to practice failing at English too, as part of the process, and being able to build ideas without having to always translate it in my head was key to my growth in my career, but also just building relationship in real life outside of work. So personally, so Toastmaster really helped me in that regard, practicing English and structuring my thought further, quicker, in a more clear, I don't know if clearer is a word in English, but in a clearer way, and making sure that my audience I'm truly expressing my message to them. So it was a good way to practice those skills in a safe space while getting feedbacks from others.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Caroline. For our second question, what impact have you seen Toastmasters have on individuals in your workplace, as you both belong to clubs within your organizations? Let's start with Caroline, then we'll do Brian after.
Awesome. Thank you. In our Toastmaster Club, Be Amazing at Best Buy, we have a lot of people who are joining similar to me, who wants to practice their English because it's not their first language. And seeing them gaining in confidence is always something that I find amazing, because sometimes we see people that have it seems to have no personality in English, and as they get better and more confident, their personality start to gleam, and then we see who they are for real. They don't feel limited by how well they can express themselves in the language. Aside from that, the other benefits we've seen is new leaders joining to gain in confidence, to gain in how effectively they can deliver the message, persuade, influence, or lead with humor, because it's also that we want to accomplish. So we saw new leaders joining, practice those skills once again in safe space. So once they're in moment that, I'll say that matters, but not that Toastmaster that not matters, but it doesn't have the same impact on if you make a mistake, it's not going to impact, will you get funding for your projects or not? So safe space in that regard, well, both matters. It also gave a lot of people opportunities to try new things that they, once again, will not try when they're trying to get the funding, or will not try when they're trying to pitch a project, or will not try when they're explaining what's the change management that we're going to put in place. So it gave a lot of opportunity to people, and I say it gave, but it still gives a lot of opportunity to people to practice new things, to develop their confidence, and to get better while doing all of that at public speaking and at delivering a clear message.
Excellent. Thank you, Caroline. And Brian, same question. How do you see it impact your workplace?
Well, Mark, yes, I certainly have seen it impact the workplace, and I've seen it. And what gets me particularly excited is to watch someone who is, for example, as Caroline has said, somebody who's not an English-speaking person come in and gain confidence in English, but also the shy, introverted individual who might have something to say, but is not going to put their hand up first and is encouraged to take part and eventually feel comfortable with and confident ultimately in speaking. And that's something that is a long process for some people, but it's a series of wins that get achieved. And like Caroline, I have said to people, I had the opportunity in Toastmasters to fail spectacularly amongst friends. So the fear, the anxiety, the concern about not doing something as well in the workplace got dissipated over time by the practice and the constant ability to learn and to grow and to feel comfortable with doing that. And I've seen this over and over again with people in my workplace who are Toastmasters and who have become confident individuals.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. We're running short on time for the panel, so I'll ask one final 30-second question each. So if you had 30 seconds to explain the value of Toastmasters program to a colleague or someone trying to start it within their workplace, what would you say? Let's start with Brian. 30 seconds.
Well, Mark, I would say I wish I had learned of or been part of Toastmasters years ago. I think that it would be a huge advantage for anybody. And I have had a safe and fun place to practice, as I've said. I learned something every day, every time out. Just as today, I got some feedback on my presentation, trying to do some of the things that Lydia pointed out when I'm talking right now. And I think it's that practice that makes perfect. Back to you, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And Caroline, 30 seconds. What advice would you give to someone trying to start Toastmasters?
It's hard to follow Brian because he had great advice. And sorry, I think I called you Mark earlier, Brian. Sorry for that. But my advice is to join it, start the club, do it. Taking action towards your growth, either your individual growth or your organization growth, is the best thing. It's the best gift you can give yourself because practice makes perfect. So if you give the space and if you give yourself the opportunity to practice, to develop those skills, to learn to fail, to recover from that so you're not frozen in that moment or you're not always feeling like, oh, I failed once and stay shaky, you're just going to get better. So creating this opportunity or taking this opportunity to train and grow and do it is the best gift you can give to yourself.
Excellent. Thank you both so much to Caroline and Brian. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you.
So now we've reached the final piece of our agenda, the Q&A. So if you have any questions that have popped up from listening to our panelists, our speakers, or anything from today, please put it through to our chat to Carol Murphy. And Carol, if you've received any questions already, please let me know. But also just to give an explanation, I want to also thank and introduce Carol, who's been working as our spotlighter, timer, and everything in the background. And she's been a Toastmaster 31 years, as currently the host for Toastmasters International Convention in Vancouver this August, which is a huge honor. Another shout out in the background to Torsten Lang, who's been a Toastmaster of 9 years, past public relations manager for half of BC, and a resident technology expert. They've been here in the background of making this all work, so thank you both to them. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them through to Carol. We have about 5 minutes for that. In the meantime, I can talk a little bit more about what bringing Toastmasters to your organization could look like. So in the agenda, which I will upload again right now, at the very bottom, you'll see 2 names, one being myself, Mark Hurrell's Club Growth Director, and the other being for our Extension Chair, Jim Heeren. So if you're interested to learn more about how Toastmasters could work in your organization, or just what Toastmasters can offer, you're able to email either one of us, and we can set up a meeting to discuss it more with yourself or with other members of your team. This meeting that you saw right here is also similar to what we might call a demonstration meeting, in which case we can come into your organizations and do something similar to what you saw today for all of your fellow employees to see, to really understand what Toastmasters is. I'll also be sending out a recording to those who authorized it when they registered, so they can rewatch this, share this, do what they like with this, so that others can learn more about it. If you registered saying, no, do not follow up with me, you can still reach out to myself or Jim and we can share the recording thereafter. Basically, Toastmasters is here to support you and support your public speaking and leadership development. So if there's a way that we can help you, that's what we're here for.
Caroline had to leave, and she did leave a message for everyone. She repeats her advice by saying, if you have a chance to join Toastmaster or to create a corporate club, do it. It's a gift that keeps giving. I thought that was a good message to give. Oh, there is a question here. Sorry. Why do people stay long-term in Toastmasters?
That is an excellent question. And if you wouldn't mind, Carol, I know that you've been in Toastmasters a long time. I'd love for you to give the chance to answer that.
I have to say, 31 years I've been in Toastmaster, and a lot of people ask me that question all the time. Why do you still stay? Are you not published or a polished speaker already? And the reason I stay is because I learn and grow all the time, every day. I actually learn from new members how creative they can be with their icebreakers. I belong to 3 clubs right now, and my clubs are my family. Now, without putting anybody in a downer or anything, my husband passed away 4 years ago, and if I wouldn't have had my Toastmaster family, I don't know what I would have done. I have so many friends, so many acquaintances, and I just enjoy going to the Toastmasters meeting and watching other people grow. So I think that's the reason that I am a long-term Toastmaster. I hope I answered that question.
Thank you very much, Carol.
I do have another question here.
Perfect.
I have a quick question. For someone who struggles a bit with public speaking, what Toastmasters course or path do you usually recommend to help build confidence when they're just starting out?
That's a great question.
Yes.
So in terms of someone who's brand new to the program, I'd say when it comes to path, presentation mastery is usually a good one to start with, as it covers a lot of the public speaking skills and is a good way to start. As well, we kind of talk about learning by doing in Toastmasters. So the best way to improve is getting stage time, getting a chance to practice. And we can also offer mentors in the club that can work with you more one-on-one to see how you can grow your skills. So we're open to all experience levels, and there's always a way for someone new to learn more about the program. So I just want to say thank you again to all of our presenters, all of our volunteers in the back end for Carol and Torsten, and to all of our audience members for making this a wonderful event. This would not have been such a success without any single one of you, and I appreciate all of you. For all of our guests, as I say, you're welcome to reach out to myself or Jim with the emails that are on the form. I also shared some flyers at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll quickly reshare those in case you want to take them with you. So they're in the chat again to download. And otherwise, we've now talked about some public speaking basics, how Toastmasters works, and hearing what it can do for the workplace. So if you'd like to see how Toastmasters can help develop confident speakers, thoughtful leaders, and collaborative teams, feel free to reach out to me, myself, or Jim, or anyone you've met here. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Hey, everyone. What a pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. And thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you.